Have you ever felt lonely, even when surrounded by people? Many believe loneliness comes from having no one beside them. But what if the real cause is something deeper? We spend years chasing connection, approval, and love, believing they will finally make us feel whole. Yet the more we chase, the more restless we become. Buddhist wisdom teaches that suffering does not begin with being alone. It begins when we resist what is and desperately seek happiness outside ourselves. Before we learn how to let go, we must first ask a simple but life-changing question. Are you truly lonely or simply disconnected from yourself? At the heart of loneliness is often a quiet fear. The fear of not being loved, the fear of not being chosen, the fear of being left behind, while everyone else seems connected and fulfilled. Many people do not suffer because they are alone. They suffer because they believe being alone means they are unworthy. So they cling to relationships, seek constant validation, or stay in places that no longer bring them peace. Yet the Buddha taught that fear grows wherever attachment grows. The more your happiness depends on others, the more fragile it becomes. Before healing can begin, we must honestly recognize this fear and understand how deeply it shapes our thoughts, emotions, and choices. Here is a truth that many people spend years trying to avoid. Loneliness itself is not the source of suffering. Two people can sit alone in the same room. One feels peaceful, while the other feels deeply miserable. The difference is not the situation. It is the resistance. We suffer when we tell ourselves this should not be happening, or my life should be different. The mind fights reality and creates pain on top of pain. Buddhist wisdom teaches that suffering grows when we reject the present moment and demand that life follow our expectations. The loneliness is not what hurts most. The struggle against it is. If this message resonates with you, please take a moment to like this video and support the growth of Virtue Buddha's teachings. Imagine a person who loses a relationship they thought would last forever. At first they believe the breakup itself is what caused their suffering. But months pass and the pain remains. Why? Because they continue replaying memories, wishing the past could return and refusing to accept what has already changed. The Buddha taught that suffering is often not created by the event itself, but by the mind's attachment to how things used to be. Life moves forward, yet the mind keeps looking back. The deeper lesson is this: pain may be unavoidable, but prolonged suffering begins when we cling to what can no longer stay. If suffering comes from attachment, then the next question becomes obvious. What exactly are we holding on to? For many people, it is not just a person, it is a memory, a version of the past that felt safe, familiar, and meaningful. Others cling to a future that exists only in their imagination, constantly hoping life will unfold exactly as they planned. Some hold on to old wounds, old regrets, or old identities they have already outgrown. The mind keeps returning to these attachments because it fears uncertainty. Yet the Buddha taught that whatever we cling to eventually becomes a source of suffering. Before we can find peace, we must first become aware of what our heart refuses to release. The strange thing about attachment is that it promises comfort, but often creates suffering. The more tightly you hold on to someone, a memory or an expectation, the more fear enters your life. Fear of losing it, fear of change, fear that reality will not match your hopes. Life is constantly moving, yet attachment tries to freeze it in place. This creates an exhausting inner conflict. The Buddha compared it to trying to hold water in a clenched fist. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips away. What hurts us is often not the loss itself, but our refusal to accept that everything in life is subject to change. The more we cling, the heavier the burden becomes. At this point, many people misunderstand the Buddhist path. They hear the words "let go" and assume it means giving up, becoming indifferent, or walking away from responsibilities. But true letting go is something very different. Letting go does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. You can still love someone without needing to control them. You can still pursue your goals without attaching your worth to the outcome. You can still fulfill your responsibilities without carrying unnecessary emotional weight. The Buddha never taught abandonment. He taught freedom from attachment. Letting go is not about losing what matters. It is about releasing the suffering created by holding too tightly. One of the most liberating lessons in Buddhist wisdom is realizing that much of our suffering comes from trying to carry things that were never ours to carry. We expect others to understand us perfectly. We want them to behave according to our wishes. We absorb their opinions, judgments, and emotional struggles as if they define our value. But none of these things truly belong to us. You cannot control how others think. You cannot control whether someone appreciates you. You cannot control every outcome in life. The moment you stop carrying these burdens, your heart becomes lighter. Letting go means returning responsibility to where it belongs and freeing yourself from emotional weights that were never yours to hold. Many people spend their lives carrying emotional burdens that slowly drain their energy. They feel responsible for everyone's happiness, everyone's choices, and everyone's problems. They try to rescue those who do not want help, fix those who do not want to change, and carry pain that does not belong to them. Over time, this creates exhaustion, resentment, and inner emptiness. The Buddha taught that compassion is important, but compassion does not mean self-sacrifice without wisdom. You can care for others without carrying their suffering on your shoulders. Not every problem is yours to solve. Not every burden is yours to bear. Sometimes peace begins when you finally put down the weight you were never meant to carry. Another attachment that quietly steals our peace is the need for recognition. Many people spend years seeking approval from others, hoping that praise, validation, or acceptance will finally make them feel worthy. But the more your value depends on someone else's opinion, the more fragile your happiness becomes. Some people will appreciate you, and some will not. Some will understand your intentions, and some never will. The Buddha taught that true freedom begins when you stop measuring your worth through the eyes of others. Your value does not increase when you are praised, nor decrease when you are criticized. The moment you stop chasing approval, you reclaim your energy, your confidence, and your peace. What others think of you becomes far less important than how deeply you understand yourself. Acceptance is one of the most misunderstood teachings in Buddhism. Many people think acceptance means weakness or surrender. In reality, acceptance is the beginning of freedom. It means seeing life as it is, instead of fighting what has already happened. You do not have to like every situation. You do not have to approve of every loss or disappointment. But the moment you stop arguing with reality, your suffering begins to soften. Acceptance allows you to save your energy for healing instead of resistance. It is not giving up on life. It is finally making peace with the present moment. The more we fight life, the heavier life feels. We resist change, reject difficult emotions, and wish reality were different. Yet this constant struggle creates a second layer of suffering on top of the pain that already exists. The Buddha taught that peace does not come from winning a battle against life. It comes from understanding life. When you stop demanding that every situation match your expectations, something remarkable happens. Your mind becomes calmer. Your heart becomes lighter. Challenges may still exist, but they no longer control you. The moment you stop fighting the current and learn to move with it, life begins to feel less like a burden and more like a journey. At the heart of Buddhist wisdom lies a simple truth: everything changes. Relationships change, emotions change, circumstances change. Even the person you are today is not the same person you were a year ago. Yet, much of our suffering comes from wanting things to remain exactly as they are. We cling to moments, people, and experiences as if they can last forever. The Buddha called this impermanence. It is not a punishment. It is simply the nature of life. When you deeply understand that nothing stays the same forever, you stop being shocked by change. Instead of fearing it, you learn to accept it. And in that acceptance, a deeper sense of peace begins to grow. One of the hardest lessons to accept is that people change. Someone who once loved you deeply may grow in a different direction. A close friendship may fade. Even family relationships can evolve over time. When this happens, many people immediately feel betrayed. But often what hurts most is not the change itself. It is our expectation that things should have remained the same forever. The Buddha taught that change is not an exception to life. It is life. People change because experiences change them. Circumstances change. Priorities change. Understanding this does not remove the sadness, but it helps us let go of resentment. Instead of seeing every change as a loss, we can begin to see it as part of the natural flow of existence. Another source of suffering is the desire to control what was never ours to control. We want people to act the way we expect. We want the future to unfold according to our plans. We want certainty in a world that offers none. But the tighter we try to control life, the more anxious and exhausted we become. The Buddha taught that peace arises when we focus on what is within our control, our actions, our choices, and our state of mind. Everything else belongs to the flow of life. Letting go of control does not make you weak. It makes you free. If this message is helping you, please take a moment to like this video and support Virtue Buddha's teachings so more people can discover these timeless Buddhist insights. Closely connected to control is expectation. We create images in our minds of how people should behave, how life should unfold, and how quickly our goals should be achieved. Then we suffer when reality fails to match those expectations. The Buddha taught that expectations often create disappointment because they try to force life into a fixed shape. The problem is not reality itself, but our attachment to a particular outcome. When you release unrealistic expectations, you become more open to life as it is. You stop demanding perfection from yourself, from others, and from the world. In that space, frustration begins to fade, and peace quietly takes its place. Life becomes much lighter when we stop demanding immediate answers. Many of us feel uncomfortable with uncertainty. We want to know what will happen next, whether a relationship will last, whether a decision is right, or whether the future will work out. But the truth is that life has always been uncertain. The Buddha taught that wisdom is not found in controlling the unknown, but in learning to live peacefully within it. Not every question needs an answer today. Not every path becomes clear immediately. Sometimes growth happens while we are waiting. Sometimes clarity arrives only after we stop forcing it. When you learn to befriend uncertainty, fear loses its power and trust begins to take its place. Most people fear loneliness so deeply that they spend their lives trying to escape it. They fill every quiet moment with distractions, conversations, work, or endless scrolling. Yet the more they run, the more loneliness seems to follow them. The Buddha taught that what we resist tends to hold power over us. Loneliness is not defeated by escape. It is understood through awareness. The moment you stop running and allow yourself to sit quietly with what you feel, something begins to change. What once looked like an enemy slowly becomes a teacher. The path to peace does not lead away from loneliness. It leads directly through it. Once you stop running from loneliness, the next step is learning to sit with yourself. For many people, this is surprisingly difficult. Silence feels uncomfortable because it leaves no place to hide. Yet this is where real transformation begins. The Buddha often emphasized the importance of stillness and self-observation. When you sit quietly without distraction, you begin to notice your thoughts, your fears, your desires, and your habits. At first, the experience may feel unsettling, but over time, something beautiful happens. You stop seeing yourself as a stranger. You begin developing a deeper relationship with your own mind. And in that quiet space, loneliness slowly gives way to self-understanding. As you spend more time in stillness, emotions that were once buried begin to surface. Sadness, fear, disappointment, regret, and emptiness may all appear. Many people instinctively push these feelings away because they seem uncomfortable. But the Buddha taught that healing begins with understanding, not avoidance. Emotions are not enemies. They are messages. They reveal where attachment exists, where wounds remain, and where compassion is needed. Instead of judging what you feel, simply observe it. Let the emotion be present without trying to fix it immediately. When you stop resisting your inner experience, you discover that emotions like clouds in the sky eventually pass, and beneath them, a calmer and more peaceful mind begins to emerge. True healing does not begin when the pain disappears. It begins when you stop running from it. Most people try to heal by distracting themselves, staying busy or pretending they are fine. But healing grows through presence. It grows when you are willing to sit with your experience without judgment. The Buddha taught that awareness itself is transformative. When you bring gentle attention to your sadness, fear, or loneliness, you stop feeding them with resistance. You simply allow them to be seen. In that space of acceptance, something remarkable happens. The wound no longer needs to shout for attention. What was once suffering gradually becomes understanding, and from that understanding, genuine healing begins to unfold naturally. At this point, an important distinction begins to emerge. Loneliness and solitude may look similar from the outside, but they are completely different experiences within. Loneliness is the feeling that something is missing. It is the belief that you need someone or something outside yourself in order to feel whole. Solitude, on the other hand, is the ability to be alone without feeling incomplete. Loneliness says, I have no one. Solitude says, I am enough in this moment. The Buddha's path does not teach isolation. It teaches inner completeness. When you learn to enjoy your own presence, being alone stops feeling like a punishment and begins to feel like freedom. Learning to be alone is not about withdrawing from the world. It is about becoming comfortable in your own presence. Many people fear being alone because they have never learned how to enjoy their own company. They immediately reach for distractions whenever silence appears. But the Buddha taught that peace arises when the mind no longer depends on constant stimulation. As you spend time with yourself, you begin to discover something unexpected. You are not empty. You are not incomplete. Beneath the noise of daily life is a deeper sense of awareness, wisdom, and calm. The more comfortable you become with being alone, the less you depend on others to fill an inner void, and what once felt like loneliness gradually transforms into solitude. As loneliness fades and solitude begins to grow, you naturally rediscover a space that many people have lost: your inner world. Modern life constantly pulls attention outward through noise, responsibilities, opinions, and endless distractions. Rarely do we pause long enough to listen to ourselves. The Buddha taught that wisdom arises from observation. In moments of silence, you begin to notice your thoughts without being controlled by them. You become aware of your emotions without being overwhelmed by them. This inner space becomes a refuge, a place where clarity can emerge. The more time you spend reconnecting with yourself, the less you feel lost in the demands of the outside world. And within that quiet awareness, a deeper peace begins to take root. For most of our lives, we search for peace in the outside world. We look for it in relationships, achievements, money, status, or the approval of others. Yet, even when we obtain these things, the feeling often does not last. The Buddha taught that anything outside us is temporary and therefore cannot provide lasting peace. What changes cannot be the foundation of true happiness. The more we depend on external conditions, the more vulnerable we become to disappointment. Real peace begins when we stop searching outside and start turning inward. If peace is not found outside, where can it be found? The Buddha pointed to something remarkably simple: the present moment. Most suffering comes from living somewhere else. The mind revisits the past with regret or rushes into the future with worry. Yet life is happening only here, only now. When you return your attention to this breath, this moment and this experience, the mind begins to settle. Nothing needs to be added. Nothing needs to be achieved. Peace is not waiting for a better future. It exists beneath the noise of thought, available in every moment we are fully present. The more often you return to the present, the more natural inner peace becomes. Many people spend their entire lives chasing happiness. They believe it exists somewhere ahead of them, in the next achievement, the next relationship, or the next chapter of life. But the more they chase it, the more distant it seems to become. The Buddha taught that happiness is not something to hunt down or possess. It is a natural state that emerges when the mind is no longer trapped by craving and attachment. Constantly chasing happiness creates restlessness because it tells us that this moment is not enough. True peace begins when we stop searching for fulfillment everywhere else and learn to appreciate the life already unfolding before us. One of the great paradoxes of life is that happiness often appears when we stop chasing it. The mind becomes lighter when it releases unnecessary burdens, the need to control, the need to be approved of, the need to hold on to what is already changing. The Buddha taught that attachment creates suffering because it keeps us trapped in fear and expectation. When we gradually let go of these attachments, space opens within us. In that space, peace begins to grow naturally. Happiness is not something we force into existence. It quietly emerges when the mind is no longer crowded by endless craving, resistance, and worry. Sometimes gaining peace is not about adding more. It is about letting go of what weighs us down. As we learn to let go, gratitude begins to transform the way we see our lives. The mind naturally focuses on what is missing, what went wrong, or what we have lost. Gratitude gently shifts that focus toward what is still here. It reminds us of the lessons we have learned, the strength we have gained, and the blessings we often overlook. The Buddha taught that suffering grows when we dwell on lack, while peace grows when we recognize what is already present. Gratitude does not ignore pain. It simply prevents pain from becoming the entire story. When we appreciate this moment, this breath, and this opportunity to grow, the heart moves from scarcity to abundance, from emptiness to contentment. As gratitude grows, another important realization begins to emerge. Your value does not come from what you achieve, own, or receive from others. Many people spend years tying their worth to success, relationships, appearance, or recognition. But these things constantly change. The Buddha taught that lasting peace can only arise when we stop defining ourselves through external conditions. Your value is not something that must be earned. It already exists within you. When you understand this, you no longer feel the need to constantly prove yourself. You stop comparing your journey to others. You stop measuring your life by outside standards. And in that freedom, a quiet confidence begins to grow, one that cannot be taken away by failure, rejection, or change. Many people believe they must become better, stronger, wiser, or more successful before they deserve peace. But the Buddha taught a different path. Peace does not come from becoming perfect. It comes from accepting yourself as you are in this moment. Growth is important, but self-worth should not depend on perfection. You do not need to fix every flaw before you can experience inner calm. Sometimes peace begins the moment you stop fighting yourself. A peaceful mind is not created by controlling every emotion. It is created by no longer fighting them. Sadness may come, fear may arise, moments of uncertainty may appear, but when you stop resisting these experiences, they lose much of their power over you. The Buddha taught that suffering grows through resistance and softens through awareness. The more you allow life to unfold without constant inner conflict, the calmer your heart becomes. If you are choosing peace over struggle today, leave a comment with the number 1 and let us know you are on this journey of letting go and inner freedom. As inner resistance fades, life begins to feel less like a battle and more like a river. The Buddha taught that wisdom is not found in forcing life to follow our plans, but in learning to move with its natural flow. When we constantly push, control, and resist, we create tension. But when we trust the process of life, we discover a different kind of strength. This does not mean giving up. It means acting with effort while releasing the need to control every outcome. Flow creates freedom, where force creates suffering. The Buddha taught that life unfolds through causes and conditions. People enter our lives when conditions are right, and they leave when those conditions change. Relationships, opportunities, and experiences all follow this natural law. Much of our suffering comes from demanding that things stay when their time has passed. When we understand the nature of causes and conditions, we become less afraid of endings. We learn to appreciate what arrives, release what leaves, and trust the wisdom of life's unfolding journey. When you let go of old attachments, something unexpected happens. A space opens within you. At first, this space may feel uncomfortable because it is no longer filled with constant worry, longing, or emotional noise. But this emptiness is not a loss. It is an opportunity. The Buddha taught that we cannot receive something new while clinging tightly to what has already passed. The space created by letting go becomes the foundation for healing, clarity, and growth. What once felt like emptiness gradually reveals itself as possibility. As healing begins to fill that inner space, a new feeling emerges. Freedom. Freedom is not getting everything you want. It is no longer being controlled by what you cannot have. The Buddha taught that attachment keeps the mind tied to the past, to fear, and to endless craving. When those chains begin to loosen, your heart becomes lighter. You stop replaying old stories. You stop depending on external conditions for happiness. The freedom that comes from letting go is quiet but powerful. It allows you to move through life with greater ease, clarity, and peace. And from that freedom, a deeper peace begins to grow. When your happiness is no longer dependent on people, circumstances, or outcomes, life loses its power to constantly shake you. Difficult moments still come, but they no longer define you. The Buddha taught that true peace arises when the mind is free from attachment and resistance. You stop being pulled in every direction by fear, desire, and disappointment. Instead, you remain grounded within yourself. This is the peace that cannot be bought, achieved, or given by others. It is the peace that emerges when the heart finally learns how to let go. As inner peace deepens, life becomes less frightening. You no longer need to control everything to feel secure. You trust yourself to handle whatever comes. The Buddha taught that true strength is not found in holding on, but in knowing when to release. A peaceful heart is not weak. It is steady, resilient, and difficult to disturb. The more peace you cultivate within, the less power the outside world has over you. A person who has learned to let go does not become cold or distant. In fact, they often become more loving and compassionate. The difference is that their love is no longer rooted in attachment. They care deeply without trying to possess. They support others without trying to control them. They appreciate what is present without fearing its eventual change. The Buddha taught that true love grows from freedom, not from clinging. When you release attachment, you do not lose your ability to love. You simply learn how to love with a lighter and more peaceful heart. As we come to the end of this journey, remember the lesson at the heart of Buddhist wisdom. Suffering often grows from holding on, while peace grows from letting go. We cling to people, expectations, memories, fears, and imagined futures, believing they will keep us safe. Yet the tighter we hold, the heavier our hearts become. True freedom begins when we stop resisting life and start trusting its natural flow. Loneliness becomes solitude. Attachment becomes understanding. Fear becomes acceptance. And within that transformation, inner peace quietly emerges. You do not need a perfect life to find peace. You only need the courage to release what no longer serves you and return to the present moment. If these teachings have brought value to your life, please subscribe to Virtue Buddha's teachings and join us for more Buddhist wisdom, healing, and inner peace. May you walk forward with a lighter heart, a calmer mind, and the freedom that comes from letting go.